Depression. It's an affliction that affects millions across the world, yet remains poorly understood by many. It's not just sadness, but an intense disconnection from life itself, a feeling of being trapped in a reality that seems increasingly unbearable. But what if depression isn't simply a consequence of difficult circumstances? What if it's an inherent part of the human condition, especially for those who are good, empathetic, and sensitive? Throughout history, many great thinkers have wrestled with the concept of depression, trying to understand why it affects some people more profoundly than others. The philosopher Dorothy Row, a prominent figure in psychology, argues that depression often stems from the internalization of societal ideals, especially for those who try to be good in a world that demands perfection. Row's theory suggests that depression is a defense mechanism, a way of holding ourselves together when our life's narrative doesn't match the ideals we're expected to meet. According to her, many people suffer from depression because they live with the constant feeling that they have fallen short of an ideal self, one that is defined by societal standards, whether that be success, productivity, or moral goodness. This can lead to profound feelings of inadequacy, shame, and ultimately, depression. Row's central idea is that only good people, those who strive to meet high moral standards or the expectations of society, are prone to depression. The pressure to maintain this ideal self can be overwhelming, creating a gap between how one sees themselves and how they believe society expects them to be. This gap, she argues, is the breeding ground for psychological distress. But depression has also been deeply explored by other thinkers, perhaps most profoundly by Fyodor Dostoevsky. The Russian writer, known for his intense exploration of human suffering, described depression not as a sign of weakness, but as a reflection of the soul's confrontation with a harsh, often absurd world. Dostoevsky's works, particularly Notes from Underground and Crime and Punishment, are filled with characters who suffer from what we might call existential depression, an intense feeling of alienation and disillusionment with the world around them. Dostoevsky believed that true suffering, even depression, could be a catalyst for spiritual awakening. In Notes from Underground, he wrote that the very anguish one experiences could be a sign of deeper, more profound self-awareness. For Dostoevsky, depression was often a result of individuals seeing themselves as inherently flawed or unworthy in a world that demanded meaning and moral certainty, something deeply connected to Row's idea that good people, who internalize these high standards, are more vulnerable to despair. This philosophical perspective also resonates with the works of Nietzsche, who argued that the burden of moral perfection could lead individuals to a state of nihilism, a loss of meaning in life. Nietzsche believed that society's expectations crushed individual freedom and led to deep psychological crises. Much like Dostoevsky, Nietzsche saw suffering as an inevitable part of life, but he believed that it could also be a source of growth if one could find the strength to rise above it. In modern terms, we might consider how societal pressures, social media, work culture, and even family expectations can create an internalized narrative that distorts one's self-image, leading to a form of depression. We internalize these societal norms so deeply that we come to believe that failure to meet them means we are inherently flawed. This psychological prison, as Row calls it, keeps individuals trapped in an endless cycle of self-criticism, creating the perfect storm for depression to thrive. Yet despite the heavy insights provided by thinkers like Row, Dostoevsky, and Nietzsche, there is hope. For Dostoevsky, the very confrontation with despair could lead to redemption. In his view, suffering was not something to avoid, but something to endure and transform. It was through enduring suffering that one could truly come to understand the self, and perhaps find meaning in the process. Perhaps then the path to overcoming depression is not about avoiding it or erasing the feelings of inadequacy, but rather acknowledging them, learning from them, and moving through them with resilience. After all, as Dostoevsky once wrote, the soul is healed by being with children. Sometimes healing comes not through rejecting our suffering, but by embracing it and finding connections that transcend the pain. Maybe in the end, it is those who feel deeply, those who are striving to be good, that are most capable of growth, even in the darkest of times. And perhaps it is through their suffering that they will ultimately find a deeper, more profound meaning in life. If you found this video meaningful, please like, share, and subscribe. Let us know in the comments how you see the intersection of depression and philosophical thought. Until next time,